What's up guys, Anthony Vapes. Today I'm here not with a review but with my Friday info videos. Yes, they are back because people like them and I like making them. So I'm going to continue to make them. So let's talk about battery life. Now for the purpose of this video, I'm only talking about regulated mods. I'm not going to be talking about mechs. Even though I am vaping on a mech because I just purchased this and I think it's pretty damn beautiful and I wanted to use it. So this is what I'll be vaping on in this video. It's the AL Ash Candy mech, and I'll be doing a review of this sometime, probably not for a while since I did just get it, probably 3 weeks or so, because it is a simple device and I don't need to spend as much time as I normally spend, which is like my 4 to 6 weeks. So this one, because it's such a simple device and there's not a lot to it, probably be a little bit sooner, but we'll see how it goes. Nonetheless, let's talk about battery life and regulated mods. The reason I wanted to make this video was I get asked this question a lot, and I mean a lot. People always ask me, does it have good battery life, when they ask for a recommendation. And it's funny because the answer to that is they're pretty much all the same. And I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to explain the differences of what you can control and what you can't control. So let's talk about first things that you can't control that affect battery life. Now in regulated mods, there's a couple of things that you don't have control over. Mind you, someone might say, well, in DNA you could change the soft cell cutoff. Yes, I understand that, but for the most part. The first thing is the soft cell cutoff. What that is the charge of the batteries that the mod considers to be dead. So most mods are pretty much the same. Most will fall somewhere in the 3.2 to 3.4 range. That's what I've seen from all the mods that I've checked. Mind you, I haven't checked a million of them. I've only checked a handful or so, but they all fall in the 3.2 to 3.4 range. The reality of it is, you know, you're talking about a 0.2 charge difference, or obviously if you have 2 battery mod, a 0.4 charge difference. But once you're that low anyway, your mods are usually hitting so weak it doesn't matter anymore. Like if you try to take your mods to dead, the ones that have the lower soft cell cutoff, they're going to be hitting so weak during that time, you're barely going to get any vape out of it. So to me, a 3.2, 3.4 doesn't make any difference. It's the same thing pretty much. It's not going to make much of a difference in battery life. The next thing that you can't control is the actual efficiency of the chip. Now most chips are rated for an efficiency. Most people don't tell you what they are. Most manufacturers don't. You know, sometimes they will if they brag about it because they're really high. Sometimes they won't because they're low. The DNA mods are one of the ones that listed. I believe it's 96% on the DNA 250, but yet the DNA 75 is only 85%. So the lower efficiency, the worse battery life. Now the thing about efficiency in mods is that it actually changes depending on your output. It's much like your car's miles per gallon. You know, if you're driving city at 30 miles an hour, you may only get 15 miles a gallon. If you're driving highway at 65, 70, which is the best range to get your best mileage, gas mileage, you're going to get maybe, 30. So it kind of works like that with efficiency. Depending on if you're in the optimal range, you're probably going to get on most mods around 90%. You know, it could be less than that if you're using, much less. Or if you're going way over the limit, like if you're driving 100 miles an hour, you're going to get less. But the reality is we don't know those numbers. Nobody knows those numbers. You're not going to know exactly what efficiency you're getting. As a general standard, most people use 90% for vaping. That's what we use for our, for our standard, because most mods are around the 90% area. Some are a little bit higher, some are a little lower. But again, we're talking about a 10% difference or so in battery life. A difference between an 85% efficiency and 95, you're talking about 10%, which really isn't that big of a deal if you think about it. I mean, I don't know what the average puffs people take a day. I really don't know, but 10% more puffs is really not going to be that much. It's really not. So for me, I don't really think efficiency plays a big part, and plus we don't know the efficiency of most of the chips anyway. So those are two factors that you can't control that play a part in your battery life. But again, it's a very small percent difference, very small percent difference. Now the other thing is, let's talk about what does play a factor in the battery life of regulated mods. First of all is going to be your batteries. Your batteries is going to be one of the biggest factors. The higher MAH rating on your batteries, the better battery life you're going to get. So if you're using a dual battery mod, something like a Samsung 30Q is going to give you the best battery life, where compared if you were using, let's say, a Samsung 25R, you're going to get less. Now the difference between those two batteries is, funny enough, about 20%. The 30Q has about 20% more capacity than what a 25R does. So that's going to make a difference for you as well. The next thing that makes a difference is your watt setting. The higher watts you vape on your mod, the quicker it's going to drain the battery. So if you want to vape at 100 watts, it's going to drain it a lot faster than if you're vaping at 50 watts. The next thing, and yeah, so the next thing now I want to talk about, that also, the main thing is very simply, every time you press the fire button. Every time you press the fire button, it's draining the batteries. So the more often you take puffs and the longer puffs you take, it's going to drain down your batteries quicker. Again, that's going to differ for every vapor depending on how much they vape. So in short, 3 things are really going to affect your battery life. It's your watt setting, how much you actually vape, and your batteries. Those are the 3 things you can control. Then we have the things you can't control, which is your soft cell cutoff and efficiency. But again, like I said, they're all pretty much around the same. The difference may be 10% at best. So you don't have to worry about that much of a difference in the mods. Let's talk about things that do not affect battery life. And this is why I wanted to make this video, because I've seen a lot of things going around about stuff that's just not true. As that simple. I've seen a lot of misconception, a lot of things that are wrong, and I get asked this question a lot about the battery life, so I wanted to make a video explaining it, so when people ask me, I can just link back to this video and say, here's your battery life. The first thing is resistance. Resistance does not play a factor in your battery life for a regulated mod. Now, people are going to say, well, how is that? Because when you're drawing amps from your battery, that is what's causing it to drain. That's why a 6,000 mAh rating or 3,000 mAh rating in a battery is it's milliamp hours. That's how many milliamp hours. So 6,000 basically 6 amp hour, or 3,000 mAh is basically 3 amp hours of juice in your batteries. So as you're draining the amps from your batteries, it's taking away from that. That's what's actually draining your batteries. Your resistance doesn't play a factor in the battery drain for a regulated mod. It's only your watt setting. Now people might come back and say, well, if I use a 0.5 coil, aren't I going to vape at lower watts? Possibly, but that's not always true. I mean, I can build a coil that's like a 0.1 coil. I only need a single coil, 0.1 ohms, and I only need it to vape at 50, 60 watts, and it's fine. In the same sense, I can build one that's a 0.2 ohm coil in dual coil configuration that's going to be much larger and have much more mass. So the difference with the watt ratings is actually the mass of your coils. How much metal you actually have to heat up is what's going to affect it, not the resistance. That's what really affects your watt rating. So when you think about it, resistance doesn't play any factor at all in any of it. For a regulated mod, it just doesn't. It's not going to affect your battery life. I think it's important that people know that. Just because you're using higher resistance doesn't mean that you're getting better battery life. And I've seen people who've been vaping for 5-6 years say that it makes a difference, and it doesn't. It really doesn't. So hopefully a lot of people listen to that and understand what I'm trying to explain, that it has nothing to do with the resistance. It's the mass of the coils, which affects your watt setting. The bigger the coils, the more watts you need, the quicker you're going to drain batteries. That's simple. So like I said at the beginning of the video, the answer to battery life and regulated mods is they're pretty much all the same. The mods itself doesn't really make that much of a difference for most people's vaping. Maybe a 10% difference depending on the efficiency and the soft cell cutoff, but the main factor is really what batteries you use, what wattage setting you have it on, which is basically how big of coils, how much metal you're trying to power, and how much you puff and how long the puffs are. You know, you take 100 puffs at a 1 second, it's going to be equal to someone taking 50 puffs of 2 seconds. Every time you're holding down the fire button, you're draining the batteries. Yeah, so that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully that explained a lot about battery life and regulated mods. If you guys have any other info videos you want me to make, please let me know in the comments below. I do take them from comments down below. I take them from comments on Reddit, and I just take it from general discussions I have with people where I see a lot of information go back and forth that's wrong, and I make a note for myself to make a video on it explaining it so that people can learn. That's basically where I get my stuff from. I do have one coming, some of the info videos I have. I am going to do an updated top 5 RTA video sometime in the next, I don't know, next month or so. I'm going to do a DIY juice video. I'm going to do a beginner's guide video. The reason I want to do a beginner's guide is all the beginner guides out there are so old and outdated, they really don't make sense anymore. Vaping has changed a lot in the last 2-3 years, and nobody's making a new beginner video that's updated for 2017. they're just not, because most people already moved on and they're doing other stuff, other videos. They got products to review, you know, the guides. Nobody updates their guides that they made, you know, 5 years ago, whatever. So I wanted to make a real beginner video. You know, what's the RDA, what's the RBA, what's the RTA, you know, RDTA, what's Genesis style, what's a goon tip, all the basic information that a lot of people just have questions on. And I was actually going to package that together with a review of the Coil Master DIY kit, since I'll also go over building and some of the stuff for building. I'll do a more detailed building tutorial than what I do in my videos when I show you guys how to build stuff. I'll just get really slow, I'll get into detail, so it's going to be a long video, you know, and I'm sure not everybody's going to want to see it, but I think it's going to be really helpful for a lot of people, and that's why I want to make it. But if there's any other ideas you have, please let me know. Also, feel free to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Other than that, this is Anthony Vapes as always, keeping it honest. Hopefully you guys can say you're doing the same, and I'll catch you on my next review. Don't forget about the contest. I still have that running to win a Liasmo Wyvern mod. So hop over to Reddit and check out my review on that and enter the contest. It'll tell you the rules in the thread right there. That'll be ending in a couple days, so try to get in if you can.